attending the open session of the St. John Board of Police Commissioners meeting for Tuesday, December 10th, 2019. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to jump into a couple of presentations that we're going to do. First of all, just a recognition on behalf of the board. Each year, and this was announced back in November, each year the Crime Prevention Association of New Brunswick and the Department of Public Safety recognize individuals and groups that make a significant contribution to community safety and crime prevention by presenting awards and certificates of recognition. The following members of the St. John Police Force received awards at the New Brunswick Crime Prevention Association's award banquet on November 13th in Armagto. They received their work for working diligently to prevent crime in the St. John area. Those individuals from the St. John Police Force were Sergeant David Hartley Brown, Constable Don Metcalf, Constable Dwayne Squires, and Constable Corey Jameson. They were recognized for implementing the following programs: Signs for Safety, Walk with a Cop, Community Support Cards, DARE Role Models, Together We Care. The CRT partnered with the St. John Newcomers Multicultural Resource Center and the Crime Prevention Association of New Brunswick to also develop educational videos for newcomers to the St. John area. The videos, which are available on local websites in French, English, Arabic, and Mandarin, explain how and when to call 911, intimate partner violence, safe driving, and mental health crisis protocols. The crime reduction team implemented a distracted and impaired driving workshop at local high schools, supported by Mad St. John and Andrew Savoy from the University of New Brunswick. The event offered driving simulators, drug recognition experts, field sobriety tests, impaired vision goggles, statistics, and a social media booth. So, on behalf of the Commission, I would ask you to join me in extending congratulations to those members for those accomplishments. I also now turn this over to Chief Connell, who has another presentation I'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we recognize publicly members of our organization, both sworn and civilian, for giving back to the organization and the community. Sergeant Wilson and Constable Simmons, along with Auxiliary Constables Phillips and Gordon, as well as Kathy DeMichelle and Shirley Lyons, community members of our Victim Services team. And furthermore, we also recognize Dr. Mary Ann Campbell. As Chief and on behalf of the Commission, we thank you for giving back to your community. I personally want to thank you as Chief for what each and every one of you do is make my job here much easier. So how does an organization become great? It becomes great because of the very fabric that makes it. That fabric is you. You give the most precious resource of all, and that's time. And I'll say that every time when we come with our volunteers, because it is so important that you give back to our community. So just before I go on, I want to notice that there are others within the organization, both sworn and civilian, as well as volunteers, that also give back. Today, those, however, is about you, and in some cases, you have given back for decades. So we'll start. Auxiliary Constable Aaron Phillips joined the auxiliary program in 2016. He has continuously given back to this community. Today, we recognize him for a special commitment he has made to the Junior Police Academy, leading and mentoring you tomorrow at the St. John Boys and Girls Club. As an auxiliary constable, Ben Fillmore, creating the JPA, puts it, Aaron is now the man leading the program, and because of him, the program is running strong. Aaron, would you please come up? I want to present Aaron's award on behalf from the St. John Police Force, present Aaron Phillips, Auxiliary Constable, in recognition of your dedication and commitment to mentoring you, Junior Police Academy 2019.
Careful, she has the pen and the ink.
Yeah.
Auxiliary Constable Kirby Gordon joined the auxiliary program in 2010, and he's now the program coordinator. Kirby's day job is being a teacher at Simons High. Kirby is able to take his newfound skills from the auxiliary program and create a recognition credit program for students at Simons High School in 2013. It's known as the Police Foundations. the only course of its kind in Atlantic Canada for high school students. This course has been taught to over 300 students. You know, it's really amazing that Kirby came here as part of the community with our auxiliary program, and then went back to what he does best, and that's teaching students, and took this program, what he's learned from this program, to really help and mentor students in our community and give a better understanding of the criminal justice system. And you know, perhaps some of those folks that come on to become police officers or lawyers or whatever they go on, but they're going to have a stronger foundation as they grow because of what Kirby said. Kirby, please come forward. Present to Kirby Gordon, auxiliary constable, a recognition of your time and commitment developing and delivering the Police Foundations Program, Simons High School, 2019.
Good.
Good, Jim? You wanna-
One more.
Yep.
Thank you.
Put you both on the same side. Kathy Dumas joined our victim services team in 2010, right? Kathy? Is it right about there?
Yeah.
Had a hard time. Kathy, like other members of our team, are specially trained. They come in from their homes to help members of our community when they need support, often a shoulder to cry on or a caring individual to help them navigate the criminal justice system. Most often, their assistance is required in darkened hours of the night. Kathy and her team have become an essential part of our service. This past year, Kathy has taken on the leadership role within the team, with the coordination of team members and giving sound advice to take the team to the next level. For this, I'm extremely grateful. Come forward, Kathy. So this board presents to Kathy Dumas in recognition of your leadership, care, and compassion for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shirley Lyons. Shirley has been a community volunteer with our victim services team for the past 13 years. Truly remarkable that you've given back all this time freely to help someone else in need. Shirley, you have been there for countless people when they needed a shoulder to cry on, just a calm, reassuring voice. Shirley also volunteers with our police museum. No?
That's her
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, but you're not at the museum? No, okay, sorry. Shirley has dedicated that time. Shirley has decided that it's time for her to retire from summer volunteering in the community. Shirley, we are glad that you chose to volunteer with us for the past 13 years, and we wish you all the best in the future. You will be missed. Shirley, please come forward. This is the award that St. John Police Force presents Shirley Lyons for your caring and compassion, giving back to the community, victim service. Thank you.
One more, Shirley, and I'll leave you alone. Thank you.
Constable Tracy Simmons joined the St. John Police Force in 1992. Tracy has demonstrated special interest over 2 decades with the enforcement of impaired driving. He has looked after and understands equipment and associated documents that are also very important for the St. John Police Force to keep our roadways safe from impaired drivers. Tracy can be found within the building making sure equipment is calibrated and the proper paperwork in place. He will come in on his own time to make sure that a piece of equipment is either sent off or received to put back into operations. He studies the case law and offers advice to his fellow officers. He has taken on all this on his own volition. Tracy, please come forward. Present Constable Tracy Simmons a recognition of your dedication and leadership, impaired driving enforcement, impacting and improving road safety. Sergeant Steve Wilson. Steve joined the police force in 1989. Soon thereafter, he joined our honor guard, to which he's still a member today. For 3 3 decades, Steve has given back to the organization and the community. As a sergeant in charge of the Honor Guard, Steve has organized many Honor Guards related functions on his own time, including funerals, parades, VIP visits, police week activities, official civic events, and St. John Police Force ceremonies. Steve has been the leader of a very public-facing group of individuals who form our Honor Guard, representing the St. John Police Force. To that, I say thank you. Steve, come forward. Present to Sergeant Stephen Wilson in recognition of your leadership, professionalism, and dedication to the St. John Police Force Honor Guard.
One more, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Dr. Marianne Campbell, PhD, is a professor at the Department of Psychology and director of the Center for Criminal Justice Studies at the University of New Brunswick. Dr. Marianne Campbell has had a professional relationship with the St. John Police Force since 2008. However, it's the work that the good doctor does by giving back her own time for the betterment of the membership, organization, and the community for which she is being recognized today. Dr. Campbell has partnered with this organization on many research projects. As an organization, it's important for programs to be academically reviewed, to see what works well and what needs to improve. This also allows us to give back to allowing students valuable experience in their fields. Dr. Campbell has given a great amount of her time focused on members' wellness. She has been a volunteer with our Wellness Committee and has promoted greater employee awareness through evidence-based and solution-focused programs that create greater employee awareness and understanding of mental health. Dr. Campbell has advocated on behalf of the St. John Police Force for a collaborative model response to mental ill health in our community. To sum things up, it's hard to put into words everything Dr. Campbell has done for us at the St. John Police Force. However, one thing I know, if Marianne can be of any assistance, she's only one phone call away. Dr. Campbell, please come forward. Dr. Marianne Campbell for your contribution to the St. John Police Force, promoting employee awareness through evidence-based and solution-focused programs, creating a greater understanding of mental health and mental wellness, advocating on behalf of the St. John Police Force for a collaborative model of response to mental illness in our community. Sorry, this was the dated November the 12th, 2019, and she couldn't make the last meeting. That was quite This conclusion, thank you all for what you have done. It certainly means a lot to me, but it really means a lot to our organization and our community. All you folks come in and do the things that you've done, not for the fanfare, not for anything else, not to be here because you need to be here. You're here because you want to be here. But you've all personally taken on things that you think are super important to the organization and super important to our community. Again, all I can really say to you is thank you.
Can I just get a group photo before everybody runs, please? Congratulations. Yeah, we want your mind as well.
Okay, we'll put this in. Okay, ladies. You guys have helped us. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
You can leave it open, Kathy. Yep, you can leave it open, thanks. So,
It's a good time to get all that open stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
should we wait for her to come back?
Should be a while, I bet.
Yeah, so let's go into item number 2, which is the approval of the minutes of November 12th, 2019, open session meeting. Could I get a motion to approve? Micah, thank you, Doug. Seconder. On the motion, all those in favor, aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. That was assuming nobody had anything arising from the minutes. Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda for December 10th, 2019. Could I get a motion approving the agenda? Micah. Seconded, Jeff. Thank you. On the motion, all those in favor, aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Is there any members with any issues on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move down to item number 5, which is the consent agenda. We need a motion to receive and file both letters from the Common Clerk's Office dated November 21st. Read the council resolutions that they received. Our letter read the St. John wage escalation policy and the August financial results.
Sir, Mr. Chair, just a comment. Thank you to the Police Commission for sort of adopting, as I understand, that item. Just for context, in the last 15 years, wage escalation above inflation to all employee groups, mind you, has been $100 million paid above inflation. And had we had the wage escalation policy in place, we would have saved $57 million in excess wages and benefits. So it's an important piece of policy to at least attempt to help us balance as we move forward. So thank you for that.
So could I get a motion to receive and file those letters? Doug, seconder? Yes. Your worship, thank you. On the motion, all those in favor, aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. We'll move down to item number 7, which is the general correspondence. Once we've gone through all, we can ask for a motion. Sorry, do we need one? No, we need one separately. So the internal monthly report, Chief.
So, St. John, for the month of November, there's one complaint, there's one complimentary correspondence, and no grievances, Mr. Chair. Recognition to receive and file.
On the motion, then, do I have a motion to receive and file? Mike, thank you. Doug, seconder. On the motion, all those in favor, aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. Item number 8.02, Chief.
Mr. Chair, this is the overview of the October 2019 financial results. If there's any questions, please answer. Receive and file.
So just explain to me, as of October 31, 2019, I'm just wondering if this was how we changed it. The overtime is down 221,000 over the previous, over the budget. Is that, oh, it's above it, sorry. My mistake, I read it wrong. Okay. I didn't have any other questions. Anybody else? Do I get a motion then to receive and file? So moved. Do you understand? Doug, any questions?
Year over year seems excessive.
Yeah, you're at 18 million but in
versus 12
or something like
1.5
that.
times.
Well, I see from
From the 2018 numbers, we're 1.5 times salary
Yeah.
which seems we haven't increased our salary by 50%. So
I will check that. I apologize.
yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we won't approve that then. We'll just refer it back.
The October numbers.
Yeah, 12. That was 2018.
Yeah, 2018 numbers are wrong. Okay. So we'll refer that back through the chief to you, Mr. Korsgaden.
Yes.
To provide revised numbers. Thank you. Do I need a motion to refer that back?
So moved.
Doug, thank you, Your Worship. Seconded, Mike, on the motion. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. The next item on the agenda is the monthly activity report. Chief?
803 was, sorry, 803 is...
PCS.
Is the Public
Oh, I'm
Safety
sorry, Public
Communications
Safety,
Center,
yeah,
right?
that's
So Public Safety Communications, October financials again. Any questions, please answer, otherwise receive and file.
Any questions? No. Any motion to receive and file then? Moved by Mike, seconded by Micah. On the motion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. The monthly activity report, Chief.
So, Mr. Chairman, again, if there's any questions, please answer them, otherwise receive and file.
So we're still seeing an increase in mental health act
Correct.
files?
That's right. It's, year over year, it has not stopped consistently, probably now for at least the last 7 to 8 years straight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, George.
a quick comment. This is a subject I'm going to say near and dear, something I'm passionate about, trying to help affect some change. And certainly the chief has been working through a couple of projects. I've had a number of meetings with should be the Minister of Health for whatever reason. He's not the one leading the charge. The Minister of Social Development seems to be leading the charge. I've met with Canadian Mental Health Association, with a number of private sector practitioners, a number of others. There has been a lot of work done over the last couple of years, frankly. About 30 public sector and private sector groups came together and said, okay, we're in a bit of crisis here. How can we improve access to healthcare, more timely access, and how do we make things different? They came up with what they called a pathways document, if I remember correctly. That went on to a shelf, and that seems to have been dusted off here in the last, I'd say 60 days. I know the minister did have a meeting with a group of stakeholders in terms of some tangible items, and I did have an opportunity to speak to the minister last night. She's hoping to do another stakeholders follow-up meeting ASAP with a commitment to move on, not only some specific projects, but heard the minister actually today speaking again about tangible actions that would come here, hopefully in the new year, but also very wide open mindset to not only public but private sector solutions to see if we can't bring some reprieve here. So never fast enough for me, but I mean certainly seems to be the right folks around the table talking about how can some real change come to the delivery of mental health services here, not just in the city. The ministers, I mean, obviously it's something that's challenged all over the province, but in particular here, I think everyone agrees we've got a massive challenge on our hands. And lastly, I would say it's just the ongoing discussion about where these responsibilities are landing, whether it be a discussion on group homes, and not, wasn't my comments in last week weren't to diminish the hard work of anyone working group homes, just to say there's spillover between provincial, federal, and municipal entities, and we need some clarity, and we need some discussion, but most importantly, how are we going to change how are we going to change the approach? So just a very quick commentary that the minister has met with me now 2 or 3 times, and I'm hopeful that in the next short period of time there'll be a tangible action plan that brings some change forward. And she's spoken very favorably. And I don't know if the chief will want to comment about your particular project, Chief. That may be one that is worthy of a pilot. Is that a fair?
Correct.
Yeah. Chief, could you just give an overview of that? What it is that discussions have been with the pilot?
Well, we're obviously having discussions with the province. I guess I don't want to get too far ahead here because there's more meetings scheduled. There's another meeting scheduled for this month. But the reality is it's about the impact that mental health calls of service, mental ill health calls of service have on the resources here within the St. John Police Force. And the question is this a health authority issue or a police issue? And you know, our resources are thin. It's no secret the financial challenges that the city of St. John faces now and over the next number of years. So we have to collaboratively come together and how we best approach this. And at the end of the day, who's ultimately responsible for mental ill health in our province?
Very comment. Doug?
I heard a tail end of a news story just recently that something to do with police not being required to stay in hospitals as long as they have in the past if they're dropping off somebody with mental health issues. Have you heard anything about it? Or
Yes.
I don't even, like I said, it was a tail end of a news story, but I didn't.
Yeah, so look, over the years and continues to be multiple discussions with how best the police can come and get away from the hospital as quickly as possible with when they bring folks to the hospital. The reality is that the Act requires us to stay there, and we also have a duty to care beyond what the hours are in the Act. So it's like anything else, I guess. On certain days, everything works very smoothly, and at times our officers are in and out of there. And on another occasion, understanding that it's a primary hospital with the St. John Regional Hospital that we have here in St. John, so that they handle a number of cases from people showing up to trauma cases that they have X amount of resources. So our members sometimes have to wait there as we wait for whether it's triage or a psychologist coming in to see those patients. So yeah, on a good day it can be very quickly, and on a bad day we can have multiple hour waits.
Do you know if that was local or not to New Brunswick? Because I know one of the other provinces switched their legislation.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was just wondering,
Yeah.
is our legislation different than other provinces?
One of them
Can we
just met
learn
legislative
something
reform,
about
yeah.
it? And is there something we should be lobbying the province for? So,
Yeah.
and then maybe it was another province that I was listening to, just Atlantic News or something.
Yeah.
I think the province is well aware of the issues through your meetings with the chief as to what we would like to see move on it, which is more from a health point of view than a policing point of view. Obviously, at times the police are required, but for by and large, the most part, there's nobody else to stay with them.
Correct.
Fair comment.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Gary.
I don't know if we're able to do this. I don't know if we're allowed to do this. I would be interested, like things like motor vehicle accidents. Just we always get the question and the comment about, at night we police 65,000 people. During the day we police 100,000 people. If it's possible, like in a motor vehicle accident or some of these files, to say, okay, this is all St. John residents, or these were residents of the outlying area. I would be very interested in that data, if we could demonstrate to what extent we are servicing the region within our borders. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Again, it's capabilities of our records management system to go in and glean some of that information. As much as folks believe, oh, you can just go into your records management system and get that information. It's not that easy.
Okay.
And it becomes very, very labor intense to do a number of those things. So just on our type of requests, so if we get requests from the community, from the local media, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and we talk about resources. So on the police force, because of those, there is a resource that we really don't have. We have a person assigned to that, but was never envisioned as a resource a number of years ago within the St. John Police Force. So again, it's a lot of work.
So would that be something that we could do, like if we had a partner or somebody to do research or somebody from outside, could they come in and, is that something that is allowed to do? I guess I understand certain capabilities and limitation on a particular system.
Yeah. So and there's a lot of restrictions around personal information. So we, within our system, to open that up to the outside, there's a lot of personal information that's would be in our records management system. So
Okay, perhaps just a long-term question. I mean,
Yeah.
if a store can ask you your postal code to figure out where their customers are, just wondering if we can figure out where our customers are. Anyway,
Yeah.
just something I had to twig when I was watching this, so nothing important or immediate, but maybe a rattle around
And
it.
it's worth a discussion internally.
Thanks.
I just want to build on that very quickly, Chief, is, you know, we're working through a new vision, if you will, for Greater St. John. We're working in one of the outcomes of the Sustaining St. John Plan is a regional collaboration committee. And one of the things we're trying to do there is again, develop a new vision for a growing, thriving Greater St. John, where we're taking our relationship to a new level, but also within that conversation, sort of build a little bit on what Gary's saying, is we're also trying to quantify, you know, some of the supports that are provided already. And it would be helpful, maybe we'll have the city manager have a chat to just quantify. So for example, what I call them standby services, right? And I go back to, it's a fire example, but when the boy and the dog fell over, true story, the boy and the dog fell over the cliff, we sent our boat, our high rescue team, who had been trained in our multi-million-dollar training center, and thank goodness we saved the boy and the dog, right? So what standby services is it? SWAT's not the right term, but your tactical team, now the rescue vehicle, you know, what are those standby services that are there that because they're here, our neighbors don't have to invest in those things or don't invest in those things that need to be somehow valued, because you know, the broader conversation we're having about ultimately equitability and sharing of costs and funding, we need to get at, you know, we need to get at that piece of it. So,
Yeah, so we've done just, I guess I could explain it to the best, that some of the ongoing studies, we provided that. So some folks can have a look at that.
okay, yeah, thanks.
Okay, if there's nothing further on that matter, I'll ask for a motion to receive and file the monthly activity report. Doug, seconded, Micah. On the motion, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Could I get a motion to adjourn the open session? Moved by Micah, seconded by Mike. On the motion, all those in favor, aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.